The Lost Goddess, Asherah and her forgotten role in ancient Israel. Beneath the sands of history lies the story of Asherah, a goddess worshipped in the ancient Near East. For centuries, her presence was obscured by time and deliberate erasure, but archaeological discoveries such as the inscriptions at Kuntilat Ajrud have reignited interest in her once vital role. The question is bold and unsettling. Did Yahweh, the God of the Bible, once have a divine consort? To uncover Asherah's story, we must delve into ancient texts, artifacts, and inscriptions that challenge the strict monotheistic narrative of later Judaism. Asherah's tale not only reshapes our understanding of the Israelite religion, but also reveals how power and ideology can reshape history itself. Asherah in the ancient Near East. Asherah's origins stretch deep into the religious traditions of the ancient Near East, where she was venerated as a mother goddess, the Lady of the Sea, and a symbol of fertility and life. She was often depicted as nurturing, protective, and intimately connected to the cycles of nature. In Ugaritic texts from the city of Ugarit, modern-day Ras Shamra, Syria, Asherah appears as Asherah of the Sea, the wife of the chief god El, and the mother of 70 divine offspring. She was a revered deity in Canaanite religion, associated with sacred trees or wooden poles known as Asherim, which were often placed near altars or shrines. Her transition into Israelite religion is where the story becomes intriguing and controversial. Asherah in the Bible. The Hebrew Bible makes veiled references to Asherah, often condemning her worship. For instance, the Book of Kings repeatedly mentions Asherim, wooden poles or sacred objects associated with her, as idols that righteous kings destroyed and wicked kings restored. 2 Kings 23:6 describes how King Josiah removed Asherah's pole from the temple in Jerusalem and burned it. Judges 3:7 mentions the Israelites worshiping both Yahweh and the Baals alongside Asherah, indicating her integration into early Israelite religious practices. These accounts suggest that Asherah was a prominent figure in popular religion, even if later biblical authors sought to distance her from official worship. Kuntilat Ajrud, Yahweh and his Asherah. The most compelling evidence of Asherah's association with Yahweh comes from the inscriptions found at Kuntilat Ajrud, a remote archaeological site in the Sinai Peninsula, dated to the 8th century BCE. The site served as a caravan stop and religious sanctuary, and its walls and pottery shards bear inscriptions that blend religious texts, blessings, and art. One inscription stands out: "I bless you by Yahweh of Samaria and his Asherah." Another similar inscription refers to Yahweh of Teman and his Asherah. The phrasing strongly implies a partnership between Yahweh and Asherah. Alongside these inscriptions, drawings of divine figures and symbols hint at a syncretic religious practice where Yahweh was not alone but shared a sacred bond with a goddess. What does this mean? The inscriptions at Kuntilat Ajrud suggest that Asherah was not merely a Canaanite goddess, but had a place in Israelite religion, at least in its early stages. Her role may have been as Yahweh's consort or as a symbol of his nurturing and creative aspects. This aligns with the broader context of ancient Near Eastern religions, where male gods were often paired with female counterparts. El, the chief god in Canaanite tradition, had Asherah as his consort. As Yahweh absorbed the attributes of El in Israelite religion, it is plausible that Asherah's role was carried over as well, at least temporarily. Why was Asherah erased? As monotheism became the defining feature of Israelite religion, Asherah's worship posed a challenge. The prophets and reformers of the Bible, particularly during the reign of kings like Hezekiah and Josiah, emphasized the exclusive worship of Yahweh. This shift wasn't just theological, but also political. A unified monotheistic faith strengthened centralized power in Jerusalem and distinguished Israel from its neighbors. Asherah, as a symbol of older, decentralized, and more diverse religious practices, had to be removed. Her poles were destroyed, her worship condemned, and her name reduced to a negative reference in the biblical texts. Archaeological insights. In addition to Kuntilat Ajrud, other archaeological discoveries support Asherah's historical significance. 1. The Khirbet el-Qam inscription, found in a Judahite tomb. This inscription also references Yahweh and his Asherah, further demonstrating her presence in early Israelite worship. 2. Figurines and symbols. Numerous clay figurines depicting a mother goddess have been found throughout ancient Israel. While scholars debate their exact identity, many believe they represent Asherah, highlighting her role in household worship. 3. Sacred trees and poles. Excavations at ancient sites often reveal remnants of wooden poles or sacred groves, consistent with biblical descriptions of Asherim. Though Asherah was erased from official religion, her memory lingered in folk practices and stories. The symbols associated with her, trees, poles, and life-giving imagery, remained powerful motifs. Some scholars even argue that the wisdom literature of the Bible, such as Proverbs, subtly reflects Asherah's influence through the personification of wisdom, chokmah, as a feminine, nurturing presence. Her erasure was not total. In reclaiming her story, we uncover a richer, more complex picture of ancient Israelite religion, one that acknowledges its connections to the broader religious landscape of the Near East. Asherah's story challenges us to rethink the roots of monotheism and the forces that shape the Bible. Far from being a distant relic of paganism, Asherah represents a suppressed chapter of spiritual history, a time when the divine was seen as both masculine and feminine, balanced in partnership. The inscriptions at Kuntilat Ajrud and other sites remind us that history is often written by the victors, and the gods of the past are often the casualties of changing ideologies. Asherah's rediscovery is not just an academic curiosity, but a profound reminder of the diverse and dynamic nature of human belief. Could Asherah's story inspire us today to seek balance in our understanding of the divine? That is a question her long-buried legacy invites us to explore. Yahweh's evolution from El to the warrior god. Yahweh's journey to becoming the sole deity of Israel is itself a story of transformation. Scholars believe Yahweh may have originated as a regional deity worshipped by early nomadic tribes in the southern Levant, particularly in Edom, Midian, or Taman, regions referenced in the Bible. Early texts, such as the Song of Deborah, Judges 5, describe Yahweh as a storm and warrior god, a role closely aligned with other ancient deities like Baal of Canaan and Hadad of Mesopotamia. As Yahweh absorbed the attributes of El, the chief Canaanite god, he also inherited El's consort, Asherah. This syncretism, blending of religious practices, was common in the ancient world, where new gods often assimilated the characteristics, stories, and companions of older deities. Asherah and the sacred tree. Asherah's association with trees, poles, and sacred groves is one of her most enduring symbols. In ancient iconography, she is often represented alongside a tree of life, suggesting a connection to fertility, wisdom, and the sustenance of creation. This imagery resonates with sacred trees found in other ancient cultures, such as the Mesopotamian tree of life, guarded by divine beings in Sumerian mythology; the Norse Yggdrasil, a cosmic tree connecting the realms of existence; the Egyptian sycamore tree, associated with goddesses like Hathor and Isis. Could Asherah's sacred tree symbolize an ancient universal archetype of divine femininity and life-giving power? Her symbolic tree might even echo the biblical tree of knowledge in Eden, suggesting that fragments of her story survive in veiled forms throughout Scripture. Mysteries of the Anunnaki and ancient astral religion. Some researchers and alternative historians have speculated on broader connections between Yahweh, Asherah, and the gods of Mesopotamian tradition, particularly the Anunnaki, the enigmatic beings described in Sumerian texts as creators of humanity. In Mesopotamian myth, the Anunnaki were a pantheon of gods associated with creation, divine rule, and cosmic balance. The chief god Anu and his offspring, including Enlil and Enki, bear striking similarities to the divine hierarchies of the Canaanite and Israelite pantheon, where Yahweh rose to prominence. Enlil, the storm god of Mesopotamia, shares thematic similarities with Yahweh as a god of power, storms, and divine justice. Enki, the god of wisdom and creation, echoes the nurturing and life-giving qualities often linked to Asherah. While there's no direct evidence that Yahweh and Asherah derive from the Anunnaki, the parallels highlight how interconnected ancient religions were, with shared myths, symbols, and themes traveling through trade, conquest, and cultural exchange. Mysticism and suppression, Asherah's shadow in the Bible. The deliberate erasure of Asherah from the biblical narrative is a story steeped in mysticism and political strategy. The shift to strict monotheism under kings like Josiah may have been as much about consolidating power as it was about faith. A centralized religion focused on a singular God, Yahweh, would strengthen the monarchy and distinguish Israel from its polytheistic neighbors. But echoes of Asherah's presence linger, even in suppressed forms. Proverbs 8, where wisdom is personified as a feminine entity present at creation, may reflect Asherah's qualities. The Shekinah, a later Jewish mystical concept representing God's divine feminine presence, could be a remnant of Asherah's legacy. These subtle threads suggest that while Asherah was erased from official worship, her influence remained woven into the spiritual fabric of ancient Israel. Sacred feminine, universal archetypes. Asherah's story is not unique. Across the ancient world, powerful goddesses occupied central roles in divine hierarchies before being diminished or erased as patriarchal societies emerged. In Mesopotamia, Inanna Ishtar, a goddess of love, war, and fertility, was revered before her influence waned in later traditions. In Egypt, Hathor and Isis represented nurturing and creation, often overshadowed by male gods in later periods. In Greece, Gaia, the primordial earth goddess, was gradually replaced by Zeus and the Olympian gods. Asherah's erasure from history follows a familiar pattern, but her rediscovery allows us to reclaim a forgotten chapter of the divine feminine's role in human spirituality. Modern resonance. Why Asherah matters today. Asherah's story resonates with those seeking a more balanced understanding of spirituality. Her presence alongside Yahweh reminds us that early religion was dynamic, diverse, and far from the rigid monotheism we often associate with the Bible. For historians, Asherah offers insight into how faith evolves under social, political, and cultural pressures. For mystics and seekers, she represents the suppressed feminine aspect of the divine, a call to rediscover the sacred balance between male and female energy. The story of Asherah and her connection to Yahweh is a tale of power, erasure, and rediscovery. From sacred groves to clay figurines, from the sands of Kuntilat Ajrud to the cosmic myths of Mesopotamia, her legacy survives in fragments, waiting for those willing to piece it together. Whether as Yahweh's consort, a symbol of wisdom, or a goddess in her own right, Asherah challenges us to rethink the stories we've been told and consider the voices that were silenced. In doing so, she invites us to reconnect with the forgotten aspects of our spiritual heritage and to wonder how much more remains hidden beneath the sands of time.